Rebirth of Educated Youth. Introduction to my Fiery Era. www.zhaoshuyuan.com. After a painful life ended, Qianjin was reborn into a period of intense youth, slowly entering the surging tide of reform and opening up. Friendship, family, love intersected together, composing a legendary life of a small person. https://www.zhaoshuyuan.com. Chapter 1. Wealthy Qianjin. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, Qianjin, wake up. He opened his eyes in confusion when he heard someone calling out his name, and the dilapidated and yellowed room was reflected in front of him like an old photo. Next to a bald blackboard, there was a small piece of yellow soil-built platform that made him suddenly remember. Isn't this the classroom that was converted from the Dragon King Temple during school? The files of the troops have been returned to the school. Why, classmate Yu Bo pushed him and said, I have been assigned to Yaobao Commune, and you are in Hongxing Commune. Qianjin nodded in confusion, holding the files returned by the troops and the notice to go to the countryside for a long time. When he woke up, he was 18 years old again. A few carriages kicked and stomped on the Lus road as they walked out of the campus. The crisp bells accompanied the rolled-up Lus and brought a smell of horse manure. Memories from past and present lives raced back and forth in his mind. Have I been reborn as an old bachelor? Tomorrow is the day when I go to the countryside. A masterpiece by my stepmother Wang Guizhi. Although she knew it was her handwriting, she dared not reveal it. Who went to the countryside to join the army? It's impossible for him to accomplish something that makes him happy alone and the whole family unhappy. The Wang family of stepmother Wang Guizhi is a wealthy family in the county, with many brothers and domineering behavior, and no one dares to provoke them. Father Li Wu usually doesn't dare to provoke Wang Guizhi at all. He is so rude that he can only sprinkle evil fire on him. Qianjin, do you want me to give you a ride back? Class monitor Gu Hongzhuan supported the 2 or 8 bars, his broad face full of hope. Qianjin regained his senses and glanced at the woman who had climbed to the position of factory leader by any means in her past life. She shook her head decisively and said, Thank you, class monitor. I'll be there in just a few steps. Gu Hongzhuan gave a meaningful smile and said, Lu Xiaoyan heard that you have been retired from the army and are going to the countryside again, so she left first. It is said that there is something important at home, and there is something good about her. Qianjin looked at Gu Hongzhuan's eerie expression and suddenly felt that something was unusual. She had said the same thing in her previous life, but he, who was flustered, did not pay attention. In the following 2 years, he will encounter the most tragic situation. Unlike other educated youth who spend their time together, he grows up in the ground every day, works hard, and earns over 100 yuan in a year's wages. Apart from being raided by Wang Guizhi, all the savings are given to his partner Lu Xiaoyan. However, 2 years later, he returned with a longing for a better life, and Lu Xiaoyan had already married. I'm sorry. 2 years of time and hard work only brought in 3 words of lightness. He served as a scapegoat for 2 years and even became an unemployed youth. Under this sudden blow, he became honest and humble, outgoing and lively. He doesn't have a serious job, and his family doesn't welcome him. I worked as a temporary laborer in various factories and eventually became something that everyone in my family despised and felt helpless. Gradually social death in procrastination. Hey! What is Qianjin thinking? Qianjin felt someone pat his left shoulder, and he turned his head. A beautiful figure and a string of silver bell-like laughter drifted past from the right. His lips moved and he didn't utter a word, and facing the white moonlight in his past life, just awkwardly waved his hand. Qianjin, I'm also going to the countryside. If you have time, come find me to play. Sigh. Qianjin, who had regained his senses, finally answered Lin Xiaodo's question. Lin Xiaodo is the most beautiful girl in their school. Some say she is a once-in-millennium beauty, while others say she is a fox spirit who harms the country and the people. However, Li Qianjin only knows that she is the most beautiful woman he has ever seen. Watching Lin Xiaodo's slender figure disappear, Li Qianjin let out a soft sigh and walked along the street towards Lu Xiaoyan's house to unravel the mystery of his past life. Did this woman betray him now? The current legal age for marriage is 18 years old, and it is common for people like Li Qianjin and Lu Xiaoyan to get married at the age of 18. Especially when Grandpa Li Qianjin specially went to the Lu family to establish their relationship, and even gave Lu Xiaoyan a seagull watch. Lu Xiaoyan accepted it, which means they are only one step away from getting married. Their current relationship is already engaged. Lin Xiaodo is her distant dream, while Lu Xiaoyan is the woman he has always wanted to live with. Electric poles painted with black tung oil extend forward one by one, and Lu Xiaoyan's house is at the end of this street. Most of the houses on both sides of the road are the same, with a few yellow grass houses interspersed between the green brick and tile houses. The familiar street scenery seemed to take him into an old movie, but those who had passed away for many years swayed in front of him, somewhat eerie. At the end, the low wall of the Lu family allowed him to clearly see the situation inside, and the figures were lively and lively. Li Qianjin, why don't you go back first? We have something to do at home today. Grandma Lu Xiaoyan sat on the stone pillar at the door, hunched her waist, and struggled to take a puff of dry smoke due to her toothless cheeks. Lu Nai, I'll leave with Xiaoyan after a few words. Li Qianjin guessed that possibility and wanted to confirm it. Why don't you understand, child? Mrs. Lu's yellow eyes lit up with a fierce light. Hurry up and let me go. Li Qianjin was wondering why the old lady, who usually smiles, had a bad day today. Lu Xiaoyan. Li Qianjin was stopped and shouted outside the courtyard. The door opened and Lu Xiaoyan, dressed in a green military uniform, hurriedly ran out. Li Jinjin, why did you come? Li Qianjin stared at her with a burning gaze and said, I'm going to the countryside tomorrow. Come and see you. Lu Xiaoyan avoided his gaze and looked back at the room with a guilty expression, saying, You go back first, I'll find you tonight. Li Qianjin could already see clearly at this moment, and he said calmly, Your family despises me for going to the countryside, right? Lu Xiaoyan was stunned for a moment, then squeezed out a smile and said, How could that happen? Did you have a guest at home? Li Qianjin leaned in to check. No. Lu Xiaoyan panicked and blocked Li's progress with her body. Zhaozhuyuan.com, let's go play in the park. Li Qianjin grabbed Lu Xiaoyan's hand. You go ahead first, wait in the old place, I'll go back and change clothes. Lu Xiaoyan anxiously wanted to support Li Qianqian. Xiaoyan, come in quickly. Lu Xiaoyan's mother, Wang Liping, pushed open the door and said loudly, Li Qianjin, you go back first. There's something at home. Lu Xiaoyan pushed Li Qianjin and turned around before running back. Li Qianjin also followed suit, just to confirm his hypothesis. Hey, Li Qianjin, why are you following me? Hurry up. Wang Liping extended her arms to block Li Qianjin. Aunt Lu, is there someone in the room that I can't see? Or is there someone in the room that I can't see? Li Qianjin stared at Wang Liping from a high position. This is my house. If you can't enter, you can't enter. What's the point? Hurry up and leave. The door creaked as it was pushed open again, revealing a man wearing a white shirt, blue woolen pants, leather shoes on his feet, in stark contrast to Li Qianjin's faded blue cloth clothes and yellow rubber shoes with one toe exposed. A toad, a swan. The person wearing a swan coat is just a toad with short legs and a belly protruding. Li Jinjin, hurry up and leave. Lu Xiaoyan is now my wife. He. Gui Xiaoqiang's silly face showed a proud and silly smile. Li Qianjin's heart pounded, as if he had been stabbed. The pain made him gasp for breath, and his guess was correct. At that moment, they went on a blind date, and only he, like a fool, knew nothing. He laughed with self-deprecation and said, "Gua, what kind of bullshit are you talking about? Which fool can marry you, a mentally disabled person?" The mother and daughter of the Lu family turned pale. Chapter 2. Termination. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. Lu Xiaoyan was even more embarrassed and embarrassed. Guo Xiaoqiang is a famous fool in the school, and students tease him as a fool. But he has a father who works as a workshop director in a match factory. Guo Xiaoqiang pointed at Lu Xiaoyan and said in a muffled voice, "Wife, can you tell Li Qianjin?" Lu Xiaoyan wished she could find a crack in the ground to crawl in. Wang Liping pulled Guo Xiaoqiang and whispered something. Guo Xiaoqiang happily entered the room. Li Qianjin looked at Lu Xiaoyan and said coldly, "Can't you give me an explanation?" "What's the explanation?" Wang Liping pulled her daughter over and confronted Li Qianjin with a tiger-like face. "Can Guo Xiaoqiang's father arrange for Xiaoyanan to be placed in the match factory? Can your family?" Li Qianjin looked at Lu Xiaoyan and asked, "Xiaoyan, are you really willing to marry a fool?" "He's not stupid either, he's just a bit silly," Lu Xiaoyan whispered, lowering her head. "That's all his nonsense." "What's all this nonsense?" "Li Qianjin, I'll tell you, don't come looking for my little yen again in the future. Just like you, a poor elephant that your grandmother doesn't care about or uncle doesn't love, we Xiaoyan and you are also suffering. Get out of here quickly, as far as you can." Mrs. Lu was also waving her cigarette stick while cursing profusely. Li Qianjin didn't say those nonsense about not deceiving young people to be poor. No one has a front or back eye, and can see through your future. Being poor is the original sin, it's just being looked down upon. He coldly extended his hand and said, "Bring that seagull watch." "No." Mrs. Lu pursed her lips and squeezed out 2 words from her withered cheeks. Wang Liping also wanted to deny, "What watch, I don't know." At that time, there was Aunt Chui, the chairman of the committee, present. It wouldn't sound good to bring her to your family for a second marriage. Li Qianjin insisted. Lu Xiaoyan pulled Li Qianjin's sleeve and said pitifully, "Forward, I like this watch. Look." Li Qianjin sneered, "Green tea can be found in any era." He waved away her hand and sneered, "Director Gua is in the room. If I start shouting now, your family's face will be tarnished and his face will not look good." Then, Wang Liping's face turned ugly. Director Guo was a tall branch that they had put in a lot of effort to climb, and it would be a bad thing if she just threw her sleeves and left. "Isn't it just a broken watch? I'll give it to you now." Wang Liping turned around and entered the room. Lu Xiaoyan's eyes turned red and she said, moving forward, "I just need to deal with my family. I still have feelings for you. I will write you a letter." "No need, Mrs. Gua, I'm afraid I'll get fooled." Li Qianjin heard this familiar, as she had said in her past life. A letter almost drained his blood. "Forward, I beg you. My younger brother really likes that watch, so don't take it for our sake," Lu Xiaoyan said gently. Li Qianjin, who lived in his past life, just ate this trick. A few good words made him tired and broke his pants belt. "You are guarding Director Gua's golden rice bowl and begging me, this poor boy. Xiaoyan, please let me go, okay?" Lu Xiaoyan looked at Li Qianjin in surprise. What happened in just one day? He seems to have changed his heart with a heart of stone, as he bows down to himself. "Li Qianjin, are you helping me or not?" As he was speaking, there was a howling sound coming from the room when Lu Xiaoyan's younger brother Lu Xiaojun ran out crying, "Sister, didn't you say that Li Qianjin is as easy to deceive as Guo Toad? Why do you still want my watch?" Lu Xiaoyan wished she could kick her big-mouthed brother to death. Wang Liping followed closely and covered Lu Xiaojuan's mouth. She raised her hand and threw the watch at Li Qianjin, shouting softly, "Take your watch and get lost." Lu Xiaoyan looked at her younger brother rolling on the ground and gritted her teeth, saying, "Li Jinjin, you've made up your mind. If I just leave like this, I won't talk to you anymore." Li Qianjin picked up his watch and rubbed it against his clothes under the blazing gaze of the three members of the Lu family, then casually put it into his pocket. "Xiaoyan, tell me when you give birth, I'll come and take care of you." "Li Jin, you fart." Lu Xiaoyan turned around and saw Director Guo with a cold face and Guo Xiaoqiang biting his fingers, her face turning pale. "Quickly explain, Uncle Guo, I have nothing to do with Li Qianjin." Director Guo snorted and said, "Xiaoyan, if you dare to deceive me, I don't have any good fruit from your family to eat." "No, absolutely not. Our Lu family's daughters are all innocent," Wang Liping nodded and bowed as she explained. Li Qianjin turned around and looked at the people inside the courtyard wall with a relieved smile. Although the reality was not as we expected, it should not undermine our understanding of beauty. "Xiaoyan, tell me when you get married." "Get lost." The heavy watch swayed back and forth in Li Qianjin's pocket, just like his heart, at a loss. He doesn't know if he's doing it right or not. Perhaps they've truly loved each other before, or maybe his future has given Lu Xiaoyan too much uncertainty. Who's to blame? He thought it over and over but didn't know. Returning home, Li Qianjin vigorously washed his face, his warm and delicate skin touched, his strong heartbeat on the chest, and the boundless passion in his mind reminded him that he was now the 18-year-old Li Qianjin. "Have you packed everything?" Stepmother Wang Guizhi's cold gaze swept over. Li Qianjin instinctively shuddered and looked up at her at Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. She was still so ugly and vicious. Wang Guizhi pulled out the useless junk at home and threw it on the ground, saying coldly, "Pack it up and take it away. You've had great luck in your life, and when you meet me, you still miss you. Which stepmother can do what I do? Clean up the coal in the coal bunker, pick out the coal blocks, and pass them into a pile. After finishing, take out the pit and sprinkle white ash." Wang Guizhi had her hands in her pockets, and although she was only 1.6 meters tall, she looked down at Li Qianjin, with a pair of triangular eyes shining fiercely at him. "This is just a small place at home. If it can be left there, it can be left there. Life in the countryside is also good, at least we can live by keeping food." Li Wu expressionlessly turned his back and kicked the blanket in front of him, saying, "Give me a hard time there, earn more work, and try to give more money to your mother by the end of the year." Li Qianjin let out a nod. He seemed to agree on the surface, but in his heart, he thought, "Once I'm out, no one can control my life anymore." This is his own father. He never understood why they were all children in his past life, but he didn't like him. Throwing the towel into the wash basin, Li Qianjin simply tied up his luggage and turned around to leave. In his past life, all the dirty and tiring work in this family was his. The phrase, "You are the big brother," runs through his tragic life, and morality has kidnapped him for decades. The big brother should give his due share. If you do too much, it becomes a matter of course, but if you don't, you become a sinner. Live your life again, damn who you love. My eyes are a bit alive. I have to say this every day. If you are the eldest brother, you can't grow dim sum, just like a pig, you must have a heart to eat. Wang Guizhi thought he was going to work obediently and rolled his eyes to give him another scolding. Chapter 3. Desire to Act. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. Li Qianjin turned his eyes, took the white ash to the toilet, poured it directly into the cesspit, took the shovel and smashed the 2 petals into 2 pits, then sprinkled some white ash to cover the traces. Hey, just finished cleaning the toilet. Don't go inside, go wash outside. Li Qianwei, his half-brother, pinched his nose and waved his hand in disgust, driving him out like a fly. April in northeast China was still chilly in spring, and Li Qianwei didn't care about the life or death of his half-brother. When this promiscuous younger brother asked for money in his past life, his eyes moved forward. As soon as he received the money, his eyes flushed. "Who do you know?" Li Qianjin glanced at him and went back to his own room to pick up his luggage. There might be someone unlucky in the restroom. Hurry up and escape the scene, otherwise Li Wu's big belt would have been specially prepared for him. What the hell does it smell like? Young Jun, the son brought by Wang Guizhi, came out of the room with a frown on his face. When he saw Li Qianjin, he suddenly became angry. "Li Qianjin, you are a big fool. You smell like shit when you go into the room. You mean to make us feel bad?" He picked up a pair of yellow rubber shoes and threw them onto Li Qianjin. "Silly, brush them clean for me. After washing my body, brush them again. Don't make my shoes stink." Li Qianjin's mind was once again filled with this humiliating scene, a state that had persisted throughout his youth in his past life. The slightest resistance that greeted him was his father Li Wu's wild swinging of a large belt. The scorching pain was like a Buddha imprint in his soul, and thinking about it made him shudder in waves. "Brush my pair too." Li Qianwei raised his hand and threw out 2 yellow rubber shoes. Li Qianjin sneered and came out with 2 pairs of shoes, then casually threw them into the pit. "2 cowards, don't ever bully me again in this life." Li Qianjin completely walked out of this oppressed and humiliated home, with no intention of returning. On both sides of the road, in the shadow of the eaves, there were once thick rows of ice skates, with only a small fraction remaining. Water dripped down, and black winding lines were drawn on the yellow soil. "Grandpa, milk, I'm here." Li Qianjin put down his luggage and greeted his grandparents. He grew up with his grandparents until he was 6 years old, and it wasn't until Wang Guizhi walked in that he was taken home, which opened up his nightmare. "Xiaojin, why is that all there is to it?" Grandma touched his luggage and said with heartache. "There are still some winter quilts and cotton clothes to be picked up in autumn." "Ah, this child without a mother is not good," sighed Grandma Li. Her son Li Wu blamed him entirely for the death of his grandson's biological mother, believing that he was an unknown person who was a scapegoat, a master of both father and mother. So no matter how hard Li Qianjin tried to please him in his past life, it was useless. He handed over the money he earned from work and saved his whole life, but he still didn't take it seriously. Whether right or wrong. "Sir, where is my sister-in-law's book? What are you doing?" Li Kaishan looked at his grandson in surprise, knowing that he didn't really enjoy studying, unlike his own little daughter who got into a prestigious university and was proud of his family. Li Qianjin said, "I plan to study in the countryside. Maybe one day the college entrance examination will be held, and I will pass it." "Okay. This is the son of our Li family," Li Kaishan said as he slapped his table. Speaking, he took out a stack of books carefully wrapped in oil paper from the cabinet. Although they were not new, they were not damaged by any insects. "Sir, waiting for the news of Sun Tzu's victory." "Stinky kid, if you can come back safely, I'll be satisfied." "Yeah, don't cause trouble outside. It's lucky to suffer some losses." Grandma sat on the Kong, crossing her calves and holding a cigarette stick, instructing him. He put his backpack in his luggage, and there was also a net pocket filled with daily necessities, which was most of his belongings in this house. "Sir, I need this watch back." Li Qianjin took out the seagull watch and gave it to his grandfather. Li Kaishan was surprised and said, "Aren't you getting along well with the Lu family girl?" "Humph, they climbed up the high branch and don't like our family anymore." Li Qianjin curled his lips and said, "She got married to Director Guo's family at the match factory." "How could that be?" Li Kaishan shook his head and said, "If it had been a few years ago, it would have cost lives. Now, in the new society, freedom of marriage is emphasized, but such an heartless person will not have a good end. Qianjin praised the old man for his intelligence. With the closure of the match factory, their family's life was in trouble, and coupled with Guo Xiaoqiang, who could do nothing, her future life was also full of ups and downs. The next day, Li Wu rarely used his tofu-selling bicycle to push his backpack and give him a ride. Qianjin carried a wash basin and braces in his net pocket. It seems that those two boards in the toilet are still fine. The father and son walked silently. After leaving, Li Wu adjusted his expression in a timely manner. On the road of many parents sending their children down, one should not show any different emotions, especially the petty bourgeoisie sentiment with childlike affection. His face was coated with a layer of glaze in the morning light, resembling a pickled vegetable jar. His expression looked both solemn and happy. Qianjin has already shed his last disguise along the way, and his heart is already jumping with joy, ready to fly. His life will start a new chapter from then on. The auditorium is here. The main hall is adorned with red decorations and drums, making a loud noise. The rows of neatly arranged large trucks on the square of zhaoshuyuan.com are also dressed in red and decorated with joy, patiently waiting for Li to move forward. As soon as the oath-taking ceremony came to an end, they became the wings of Qianjin, leaving the oppressive home that made him almost infuriated. On the square, busy staff crowded together, registering and delivering children's bags. The enamel basin was colliding, and the careless hot water bottle was exploding. Qianjin's heart was ignited by the noise, and his heart was jumping with joy. He slowly climbed up the steps of the auditorium, watching his once familiar classmates grin with joy. He had not felt this way for a long time. How wonderful today is! The clear sky was entirely his. In the noisy auditorium, Qianjin saw Fang Yi on the podium at a glance, and at the same time, he saw the girl he longed for among the many wide and plump robes, Lin Xiaodo. She is always so unique, her slim green military uniform attracts everyone's attention. She has a different aura from that of women in this era. Qianjin's eyes burst with determination, determined to pursue the woman he had admired in his past life. Lin Xiaodo gradually walked forward. Exceed the team and stood out. Her classmates shouted loudly, "Daodu! Daodu!" Lin Xiaodo ignored them. Seems lost in direction, walking all the way to the podium. At this moment, Qianjin realized that the infamous relationship between Lin Xiaodo and Ding Yi had begun from now on. Ding Yi is an old representative of educated youth who came to welcome their new educated youth. He is a member of the County Revolutionary Committee, a famous national model of educated youth, and the deputy secretary of the Red Star Commune Party Committee. His photos and deeds are often published in major newspapers across the country, and his photos are a permanent display in the windows of the county photography studio. Lin Xiaodo's goal is him. Chapter 4. Evil Fate. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. Qianjin's heart suddenly felt like taking a big bite of lemon, sour and unbearable. Daodu! 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 He turned his head and saw Gu Hongzhuan struggling to push through the crowd, squeezing in from behind. She screamed loudly while excluding others, her square and simple face full of anxiety. Her eyes looked around, and a layer of fluff grew on her thick lips, making her look more like a man. This seemingly straightforward woman has a hard, stone-like heart, still black. The electric bell for the meeting had just rang, and the excited new educated youth were barely quiet. Gu Hongzhuan's urgent call made Lin Xiaodo the focus of everyone's attention. Lin Xiaodo was not in a hurry to return to the team, but made full use of her classmate Gu Hongzhuan. She stood in the front row in front of everyone, looking for Gu Hongzhuan with her neck drawn. Showcased her unique attire and extraordinary youthful radiance. She walked out of the cave like a white-haired woman facing the dawn, making a necked gaze. Her dark eyes shone brightly, and her bright face shone brightly. Her clothes have a raised waist, pants have a stylish look, and her hairstyle is unique and luxurious. A dazzling crimson hairpin strongly stimulates people's gray eyes. Lin Xiaodo knew that at such a moment, she grabbed all the attention around her, and countless surprised gazes illuminated her unique figure. So she seized this crucial moment and turned her face to the podium, facing Ding Yi directly. Lin Xiaodo's gaze met his gaze perfectly. Ding Yi's gaze was no longer the deep gaze she had just had, but rather a surge of waves, lightning and thunder. She managed to firmly capture his gaze. At this moment, Gu Hongzhuan grabbed Lin Xiaodo's sleeve and gasped, "Daodu, I'm here. Our class is there." Oh, Lin Xiaodo pretended to have a sudden realization. She looked back and smiled at the dark attendees. The absolute earthquake shocked her compatriots, and the thousands of gray-headed educated youth crowded in the auditorium let out a surge of exclamation. The conference was overshadowed by Lin Xiaodo's stunning glance, and many people listened absent-mindedly to the speech on the podium, their eyes involuntarily drifting towards the smiling Lin Xiaodo. Li Qianjin is no exception. At the end of the conference, everyone boarded a large truck and drove towards various educated youth points, heading towards their vast world. Unfortunately, Li Qianjin did not appear in the car he rode in his previous life, and his life began yesterday and he embarked on another path in life. On the road, two Soviet-made gas trucks, one in front and one behind, were driving in two yellow fogs. The car behind is the one Li Qianjin is sitting in. There is a person in liberation clothes standing on the pedal outside the door, who is the driver's assistant, a chubby middle-aged man. He had a red head and a face so anxious that both eyes protruded and he shouted loudly ahead. There is a large coal truck ahead, driving too slowly and blocking the road. He shouted his throat hoarse, and the sound of the car ahead was rumbling, but he couldn't hear it, or pretended not to hear it. It was easy to reach a turning point, and the truck in front finally had a conscience. It took a step back and let the one behind walk ahead. We also drive slowly. The assistant grabbed an arm on the window, twisted his body and looked back, laughing happily, his mother. Let you eat some ash. The car was crowded with young people, and suddenly it became lively, followed by cheers. A young man wearing glasses said seriously, "This driver's style is not good and should be criticized." Li Xiangqian was sitting at the rear of the most bumpy car, with his arms loosely wrapped around him, resting on his knees, warm and cozy in the April sun. He glanced at the man wearing glasses and muttered in a low voice, "What a big-tailed wolf. It shouldn't be called Hao Quan, it should be called Hao Jian." The young people in the car finally found fun, pointing at the truck eating ash behind them and giggling. It was just when they were excited, but no one noticed Hao Quan and Li Qianjin. Li Qianjin looked at the endless black land in the wilderness, feeling an indescribable pleasure. A flurry of wind blew over, rolling up waves of sand and soil on his face, like a rough veil of gauze, constantly beating against it. The sunlight and sand made it difficult for him to open his eyes. He furrowed his eyebrows, squinted his eyes, but still wore a smile. This is the taste of youth, captivating. The east is red, the sun rises, sang in a corner near the front of the car, and soon it became a chorus. No one knows how to sing, and the southern and northern tones of shouting create a feeling of Xiantianyu in this black land. A mule cart came ahead, and the truck tilted towards the side of the road. Half of the branches and leaves of a locust tree were swept into the cart, causing the trunk of the cart to hiss and make a loud noise. Zhaozuiyuan.com. The female classmates screamed and hid, leaning to the side, even more tightly packed. Everyone burst into laughter again. Wang Xia twisted down a tree and tapped and beat on her companion's back. Singed a new song, "Let's unite, hey, the farmers who farm." After a while, it changed to, "Our China is so vast and vast." Li Qianjin's favorite song is this one, which has a melancholic tone that reminds him of a state of vast sky, vast wilderness. At the same time, he couldn't help but think of a group of people singing loudly as they passed through Guanyuan on a speeding truck, as if it were a common scene seen in Soviet movies. Someone was sitting with numbness in their legs, so everyone tried to switch positions as much as possible. There was a beautiful girl in the crowd, who now moved in a different direction and sat towards Li Qianjin. Li Qianjin noticed that her hair was cut very short and there were no signs of being permed, but the tips were still slightly curly. The face has a round and pointed shape, a small slightly protruding nose, and thin red lips. A pair of pitch-black eyes, with long curled ends and a deep scar. Her blue-gray linen cotton jacket, with its wide sleeves, showed that her arms seemed a bit too thin. However, being born on her made her feel as if her arms were a bit thinner, and instead, it exuded a girlish charm. The strong wind blew a leaf over her hair, adding a touch of tenderness to her. People from different schools were originally strangers to each other. Before getting on the car, everyone once reported their names one by one. But when it comes to self-introduction, it always feels a bit comical, so no one feels embarrassed to bring it up with Jing Chong, but he just chuckles and mutters casually. There are many people, but many still cannot make it clear. However, people like her are naturally eye-catching. Chapter 6. Arrived at the place. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, she registered herself and said her name is Huang Ju, from Shanghai. Li Qianjin is closest, so he can hear the most clearly. Huang Wan doesn't talk much to others, but she seems very happy. She often extends one of her branches out of the car, inserts it into the bushes, and makes it brush and bounce. The car fell silent, only the rumbling sound could be heard. Everyone sang until their throats were dry and they didn't continue singing. The girl who broke a tree and beat time is called Wang Xia, and she is Li Qianjin's classmate. She extended the whip-like branch from a distance and hit him twice on the shoulder. Hey, Li Qianjin, how many more ways are there? Li Qianjin didn't have a good impression of Wang Xia, who was too lively, and didn't answer immediately. Her branch hit her head again. Hey! You've walked halfway, haven't you? She tilted her head and looked over with a smile. Li Qianjin shrugged helplessly and said, "What's the use of asking me? You ask the driver." Wang Xia's eyes rolled and she said, "We are classmates. When we arrive at the commune, I will help you wash clothes. How about you help me with farm work?" "No need, I can wash the clothes," Li Qianjin said coldly. Wang Xia's eyes stood up, looking a bit angry, but she held back and threw away the branch in her hand, sitting down calmly, no longer looking at Li Qianjin. Li Qianjin was immediately happy when he saw that she was no longer competing with him. He shrank into the corner and gazed at the endless black land, emptying himself as if his soul was about to leave his body in the afternoon. The dull and persistent jolts completely dampened everyone's enthusiasm, some back to back, some leaning against the carriage and dozing off. Li Qianjin also squinted for a moment, his hard iron plate causing pain in his buttocks. He moved back and forth to relieve it. At this moment, he noticed that the girl named Huang Wan frowned and looked at him, twisted her legs back and forth in a strange way. He does the same when holding his urine. He stood up and patted the driver's cab, shouting loudly, "Master, it's convenient to park." The car slowly stopped, and the confused educated youth felt the urge to urinate at once. The female educated youth entered the roadside forest for convenience, while the male educated youth solved the problem on the side of the carriage. After getting on the car, everyone was energized and gathered together in small groups to chat. Huang Wan gratefully glanced at Li Qianjin. She is really unbearable. She cast her gaze into the serene boy's eyes, with a vague plea for help. Fortunately, he understood her meaning and promptly resolved her great difficulty. While feeling grateful, I also felt shy in my heart. My privacy and embarrassment were exposed to this unfamiliar boy. Unable to help but secretly look over, Qianjin was looking at the busy figures of farmers who had already started farming on the land. Qianjin, in his contemplation, has a special temperament that is indescribable. With thin eyelids, he can smile at the corners of his mouth, and the expression on his face and some calm aura in his personality can immediately penetrate his heart. In the eyes, there is the clarity of a child and the depth of an adult. The interaction of these two contradictory expressions is even more confusing, although they penetrate the heart, they cannot be seen through at a glance. Qianjin moved his buttocks and met Huang Wan's gaze. She hurriedly averted her gaze like a frightened little rabbit, and a blush spread across her cheeks. This girl is so cute, her gentle temperament is completely opposite to the enthusiastic Lin Xiaodo, one like water and the other like fire. The car arrived at the Qingshan Production Brigade in Hongqing Township in the afterglow of the sunset. A group of young men and women danced yanko against the sound of drums and gongs, while red and green silk fluttered in the wind. The people on the team came out in such a warm way to welcome them. Everyone couldn't help but feel a warmth in their hearts, and they all waved their hands vigorously, cheering loudly. Captain Wang is a middle-aged man with dark skin, who doesn't speak much and looks at these young people with a formulaic smile on his face. Qianjin greedily looked at the village for decades, often in the places he missed in his dreams, even though he was in a wealthy production brigade not far from here. At first glance, there were low mud and grass houses, with remnants of straw piles in front and behind. The air was filled with the smell of rotten straw and animal manure. Hao Quan is thin and tall, with a square face, wearing a dark blue khaki cloth Zhongshan suit, and has a very cadre style. After getting off the car, he immediately became active. When he saw Captain Wang of the production team coming to pick them up, he took the initiative to shake hands and exchange greetings, with a very low posture, completely different from his aloof demeanor when he was in the car. After completing the handover procedures, Captain Wang led them to a large adobe house topped with yellow grass. The yard has just been cleaned and is very clean. There is a well in front of the house, and yellow hemp rope is wrapped around a large round pulley. Opening the door and entering the house, there was a dark stove and a painted cabinet, with a stack of bowls and plates inside. There is a round table on the left side, with curtains hanging on each side of the room. One is written in red letters as male and the other as female. The yellowed newspaper on the wall was connected to the black soil floor of the pit bag. Qianjin was mentally prepared for this, and the environment here did not exceed his expectations. 16 educated youth were assigned to the Qingshan Production Brigade, while the others were assigned to other brigades, not too far away. Most educated youth do not pay any attention to the harsh environment, and their eyes seem to be filled with two flames. One group is youth, and the other group is passion. Zhaozhuyuan.com Qianjin lifted the curtain of the men's bedroom door and pushed it in. In front of him was a large Kong and two large cabinets. In the corner was a wooden table with a mottled paint surface. On the table was a huge white enamel jar, printed with a string of red letters. Brothers, this is our home on this scorching land in the future. We need to roll all over the mud and refine a red heart. Use our hands to make it even more perfect. Hao Quan seemed to be performing poetry recitation on stage. The tension following behind him was a thin and small man wearing glasses, who shouted excitedly at the words, "Yes, get busy, brothers." Qianjin grinned. If he wears the mask for too long, it will grow on his face. If he wants to take it off again, he will have to resort to physical injuries and skin scraping. But regardless of history and future, these people are still active in mainstream society and live well. People who don't have face have a much higher probability of success than those who do. Except for Qianjin, the other few people all shouted excitedly and even started singing by pulling their necks. The female dormitory also refused to be outdone and started singing. Qianjin also hummed along, but quietly spread his luggage in the middle of the Kong. In winter, when it comes to the top of the Kong, it cools down in the second half of the night and heats up at the top of the Kong. However, the first half of the night is like a pancake, and young people are just sleeping there with blood and energy, which is even worse. Only the middle is neither cold nor hot and comfortable. Okay, Li, move forward, you're fast enough. Capital Resident Fong he also followed suit. Everyone, stop talking nonsense and do whatever you need to do. Everyone should unify their thinking in order to have a strong fighting spirit. Hao Quan shouted at the top of his lungs, only to find that no one had listened to him anymore. He went to pack his luggage in a casual manner, looking left and right, only the top of the Kong remained. Hao Quan glanced at Li Qianjin and a hint of resentment flashed through his eyes. Chapter 7. Young Friends Meet. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, this kid not only ruined his passionate performance, but also took the lead in packing up his luggage. With proper selfishness, he will definitely find an opportunity to play with him. Li Qianjin doesn't care about his style. In 2 years, he will resume the college entrance examination in 77. He was not prepared at all in his past life, but in this life he will pass the exam. In 78 years, they should return to the city one after another. He doesn't want to argue with Hao Quan about the goods along the way. The brigade settled them down, welcoming and greeting them warmly. Finally, they sat down at the kitchen table. On the table were 4 pots full of vegetables, one of which was covered with thick pieces of pork, while the other was pickled Chinese cabbage noodles. One pot is stewed with chicken, one pot is cold dishes, and the other pot is stewed with tofu. After a bumpy day, this group of people was starving, burying their heads like 16 hungry wolves just to eat. They were eating with oily corners of their mouths, and a circle of children stood on the courtyard wall, watching them constantly sniffing while eating. Their round eyes showed a hopeful expression. Suddenly, Wang Xia shouted unhappily, "Oh my goodness! This fat meat has unfinished fur on the pig's skin, how can it be eaten?" Li Qianjin leaned next to her and reached out his chopsticks to pick up the fat. Wang Xia immediately smiled and said, "Move forward, you're really a man. At home, these fatty meats are also eaten by my father." Li Qianjin gave her a white glance and pointed to the children gathered around her, whispering, "You can tell from them that the village has arranged this meal for us. If we don't like it, we should eat less and don't say any hurtful words." "You." Wang Xia bit her lip and said with a hesitant tone, "It was supposed to be so. Since it was arranged, why not arrange it more exquisitely? You live a luxurious life in the city, while farmers rely on the weather to survive. Making cooked meat for us to eat is already the limit of what they can do." Li Qianjin's voice was not loud, Wang Xia could hear it clearly, and Huang Wan beside her could also hear it clearly. She looked at Li Qianjin in surprise because her thoughts were similar to those of Wang Xia. After listening to Li Qianjin's words and looking at the eager gaze in the eyes of the children on the side, she suddenly understood many things. After Li Qianjin finished speaking, she ignored Wang Xia. A delicate woman who had not experienced the harsh beating of life would not understand for a moment. After staying here for a long time, she would not find such meat unpleasant. As a habit, he puts the leftover bones in an empty bowl. The farmer woman who was cooking smiled and said, "Big brother, just throw it under the table." Li Qianjin glanced at the local dog crawling in the corner and threw its bones under the table. Immediately, he heard the barking of the dog under the table. He lowered his head and saw that those dog creatures were fighting over meat and bones. Their furry bodies burrowed between their legs, frightening the girls to the point where they dared not even move their legs. "Li Qianjin, it was you who brought them in. Hurry up and drive them away." Wang Xia, pale with fear, grabbed Li Qianjin's arm. Li Qianjin also felt that these greedy things were groaning under his feet, making him afraid to give you a leg. He put away the bones in front of Wang Xia and Huang Wan, intending to throw them away a bit. At this moment, a black-backed wolf dog squatting in the corner caught his attention, and its gaze remained calm as it stared at the few dogs grabbing food. Seems to still carry a hint of disdain. Walking in, Qianjin realized that it was a pregnant mother dog. Seeing him holding a bowl, his calm gaze began to fluctuate slightly, and he leaned forward slightly. Qianjin was very curious about the dog and poured the bones from the bowl in front of it. The wolf dog sniffed it and picked up a bone to bite. The crunching sound indicates how amazing its biting force is. It said those local dogs discovered the food here and ran over barking. The wolf dog raised its head fiercely, and its back hair stood up like a needle. Tight nose reveals a row of sharp canine teeth and emits a deep hum. The local dogs all stopped the car, shaking their heads and tails as they circled around the wolf dog, but dared not move forward. At that moment, Qianjin seemed to have seen a wolf. The wolf dog saw this local dog eating calmly and with its head down, elegant like a noble among dogs. Qianjin watched as it chewed every bone and swallowed it, feeling very relieved. He stared at it like a fool, staring blankly at it eating. Although the wolf dog looked at him with disdain, Qianjin unconsciously squatted there with a grin on his face, mesmerized by the sight. "Do you really like dogs?" Qianjin turned around and saw Huang Wan standing behind him, holding a bull bone, whispering softly. "I love this dog, I love its reserve and arrogance," Qianjin said with a smile. "It's like a wealthy lady in a declining family, never falling out." Huang Wan's face changed, but she quickly concealed it with a smile and handed the bowl in her hand to Qianjin. "For your lady friend," she said, "thank you." Qianjin took over and poured the bone in front of the wolf dog. The wolf dog looked up at Qianjin and lowered its head to switch to a more comfortable position to continue gnawing. Qianjin smiled and asked, "Do you also like dogs?" Huang Wan shook her head and said, "I'm afraid of dogs. When I was a child, I was chased by my neighbor's dog." "Did you get scared just now?" "Well, it scared me so much that I didn't dare to move, my heart was about to burst out." "What are you talking about?" Wang Xia smiled and took Huang Wan's arm, asking. Huang Wan said, "I was talking about the dogs that were grabbing food under the table just now. Look for Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. "Humph, these local dogs are really annoying," Wang Xia said disgustedly as she glanced at the wolf dogs on the ground, choking their fur and teeth. "They're even more annoying than Qianjin." Qianjin looked at Wang Xia helplessly and argued with a girl, but the outcome was not good. If she didn't argue, this little girl would argue with him. "Wang, did I provoke you?" Wang Xia turned her head and said, "Humph, you're just provoking me by bringing in the dog. Sorry Wang, I will definitely throw it far away next time." Qianjin disliked her arrogant appearance and stood up to tidy up with the helping farmers. Wang Xia's eyes turned red as she looked at Qianjin's back. Her family was all giving way to her and comforting her, but why is Qianjin always cold to her? Huang Wan glanced at Wang Xia and then looked at Qianjin, who lowered her head and remained silent, but her heart couldn't help but jump. Qianjin's completely different attitude towards her and Wang Xia made him have to think more. Is it at night? The 8 young people sleeping on the Datong bunk began to get to know each other again. Zhangli, Chu Jigang, and Hao Quan were naturally close to Harbin. Qianjin and Gao Chang were from neighboring counties in Harbin, Fang He was from the capital, and Lu Xiaoguang and Sun Jian were from Shanghai. There is no memory of these people in my past life. What will the wind blown by my butterfly wing change? 8 people from all over the world quickly chatted enthusiastically. Fang He, Lu Xiaoguang, and Sun Jian, all 3 of you will come home with tickets for me. Our old man is in the Revolutionary Committee, which is just a matter of 1 sentence. Fang He smiled and thanked. Well, I'll leave you the happiness of my buddies. When I come back from the capital, dim sum from Daozuan will be presented. We are all educated youth, we don't like that kind of thing between us, Hao Quan said with righteousness. Chapter 8. Each has its own calculations. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Fong He chuckled and said, Comrade Hao is dignified and upright. Lu Xiaoguang and Sun Jian also flattered, and queuing up to buy tickets at this time would definitely cause trouble for the dead. Zhongli and Chu Jigang heard that Hao Quan's family's attitude towards the Revolutionary Committee became even more different, and after Bai Jing returned to the city and was resettled, he needed acquaintances. Hao Quan only revealed one message and won more than half of his supporters. Li Qianjin mostly listens and rarely speaks. He is afraid that he may not be adapted to this era, and if he accidentally blurs out any inappropriate words, he will cause trouble. The 4 words of caution in words and actions are like a bell ringing in his heart. In the early morning, the sound of sailing in the sea from the loudspeaker was forcefully pulled out of their sleep by the helmsman's song. Li Qianjin half opened his eyes and squatted under the eaves, brushing his teeth and washing his face. The sun shone on his body, making him feel so warm that he didn't want to move. There was another bed next to him, and he could sleep as soon as he could. The farmers who went to work in the fields had finished their meals and looked at the group of newly emerged educated youth with tools, smiling and shaking their heads. There are also many elderly educated youth among them, who have become accustomed to this kind of life of working from sunrise to sunset. Get up. Captain Wang walked in with a smile, leading the team's accountant and women's director. Good morning, Captain Wang, Accountant A, and Director Lin. Hao Quan immediately reacted and warmly welcomed them, while the other educated youth followed suit and welcomed the 3 of them into the room. Captain Wang called everyone together and didn't say too much. After sitting down, he smiled and said, I was commissioned by the Red Star Commune Party Committee to organize the selection of male and female captains for our Qianjin Brigade youth camp. After looking at it, everyone said, do you have any ideas you can bring up? Li Qianjin looked at his nose, and his mind entered meditation mode. The others looked at each other but didn't speak. After all, they were not familiar with the place and didn't want to take this risk. Hao Quan wanted to speak several times but had concerns. After thinking for a while, he still didn't say anything. Captain Wang impatiently said, let's use anonymous voting. If the number of votes is high and more than half is the captain. Okay, we'll listen to the captain. Hao Quan stood up excitedly and liked the most beneficial way for himself. Captain Wang asked, do anyone else have any objections? Everyone shook their heads. Seeing that everyone had no objections, each accountant in the team sent a note, writing down the people they wanted to recommend, and of course, they could also recommend themselves. Captain Wang organized male educated youth, Director Lin organized female educated youth, and Li Qianjin wrote an abandoned character and put it first in the box. Others are not as relaxed as him, secretly glancing at everyone's hearts to carry out various calculations and measurements. Captain Wang, who was worldly wise, looked at the calm Li Qianjin and secretly expressed surprise. This young man's demeanor was not like that of an ordinary person. After everyone has finished writing, the vote counting will begin. There will be 2 abstentions, 1 vote for Li Qianjin, 1 vote for Lu Xiaoguang, and 4 votes for Hao Quan. Captain Wang immediately announced that Hao Quan was the captain, and the girls' side also selected Lin Qiao, the oldest, as the captain. After finishing his work, he hurriedly left. Spring plowing was the busiest time, and he was so busy that he kicked the back of his head. Attention members, it is now announced that the new educated youth from our production team have elected team leaders, who are. Hao Quanjing was listening happily when the horns suddenly disappeared and his face collapsed. Did something happen to his captain? Just as he was pondering, Captain Wang hurriedly ran back and said, the busier you are, the more chaotic it becomes. Who among you can fix the horn? Li Qianjin smiled. In his past life, he worked as a repairman in several factories for decades. This thing is too simple. Captain Wang, I will. Great. Captain Wang grinned happily and pulled Li forward before leaving. When we arrived at the broadcasting room, the speaker had already been taken off, and the captain of the militia was patting and beating, hoping for a miracle to happen. "Don't move, you'll break it again." Captain Wang came in and scolded, "This damn thing breaks down every 3 days and needs to be sent to the town to be repaired. It takes over a month each time." Li Qianjin sneered, "Such a simple thing will take another month, is there any natural reason?" Militia Captain Liang Erwang, a retired soldier, looked at Li Qianjin with suspicion and said, "Young student, are you okay? Remove it." Li Qianjin confidently took a screwdriver and removed the screw, finding the soft lead between the two terminals. He suspected that it was due to long-term dampness and mold damage here. Liang Erwang laughed heartily and said, "I'm crazy enough to be young. If I can't fix it properly, I'll embarrass you." "Don't cry then." Li Qianjin carefully checked this lead and indeed saw that it had turned black. "You can slap me twice then. It's not good to hit someone. If you fix it, I'll treat you to a drink." Li Qianjin looked up and smiled, "Then you can go prepare the food and drink now. When you get home, you can hear the sound of the horn." "Haha, kid, you look like a capable person. I'll treat you to this drink." Li Qianjin found the broken lead wires of 2 voice coils, and then gently scraped off the black plastic protective layer of the 2 voice coil lead wires that were 2.3 mm attached to the paper basin with a small knife, exposing the bare copper wire. Use small scissors to cut off the lead from the paper pot to the wire post. At the original point where the lead was from the paper pot to the wiring terminal, use a needle to pierce a small hole. Then, take a piece of multi-stranded soft wire and peel off the plastic skin. Cut it according to the length between the wire end of the paper pot and the speaker wiring post and twist it together. Find Shuyuan www.jiaoshuyuan.com and wrap the joint with adhesive tape. The smooth operation made Captain Wang and Liang Erwang dizzy and mesmerized, looking much stronger than the teacher in town. Li Qianjin clapped his hands and turned on the electricity. A sound of electric current rang out. "All right, you can hang it up now." "I'll do it." Liang Erwang leaped up the wooden pole with a few arches and hung the horn. The Wang team tapped the microphone and there was a loud bang. "Xiao Li, you're so amazing." Captain Wang forgot to turn off the microphone and quickly spread it out. Hao Quan was secretly annoyed as he listened. Even if this stinky guy looked more pleasing to the eye than him, he would still be skilled in repairing electrical appliances. Isn't it because he stole all his attention? The female educated youth also heard it and immediately several of them were moved by their thoughts. The young man has a clear eyebrow, beautiful eyes, and skilled craftsmanship, but he is the best choice for a boyfriend. If he doesn't take action, he will be taken away by someone else. Li Qianjin, who was just a small transparent figure in his past life, caused a stir as soon as he arrived here. Captain Wang finished broadcasting the news and happily held Li Qianjin's hand, saying, "Little Li Talent, it's really great that you can come to our team. It's been several years, and finally you've done a good job." Li Qianjin remained calm and smiled, saying, "Captain Wang, it's nothing. Is it serving the people?" Liang Erwang rubbed his hands on the side and said, "Little brother, there is a theater box at home that has been broken for over a year. Do you think you can help me?" Li Qianjin stood up and said, "As you walk, if the parts are not damaged, I will help you fix them. If they are damaged, I have no choice." "No problem, no problem." Liang Erwang jumped up 8 zhang high with joy. At this time, the radio was a big item and the most important source of entertainment in a family. He held Li forward with one hand and Captain Wang with the other. Chapter 9. 1 Enchantment. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. "Push, I won't go, you don't know how busy the field is," Captain Wang said with wide eyes. Liang Erwang chuckled and didn't let go. "I said Lao Wang, did Xiao Li help you so much? Are you just paying a toast?" Captain Wang said helplessly, "Alright, I'll save face for Shaoli today, otherwise I'll slap you 2 big times while drinking." "Alright, when did we delay the work in the field?" "When I heard about it, I was full of energy." Liang Erwang walked into his yard and said, "Wife, kill that big reed flower and prepare a few more dishes. Our family wants to entertain the distinguished guests." Erwang's wife poked her head out of the room and saw the captain smiling. "It's not easy to bring your Captain Wang home." Captain Wang waved his finger at Li Qianjin and said, "I'm also an accompanying guest. This is the distinguished guest." Erwang's wife looked at Li Qianjin in surprise, dressed like an educated youth. When did Captain Wang's impression of them improve again? "Who is this?" Liang Erwang took the conversation and said, "Wife, he is comradely, a newly appointed educated youth. He just fixed the loudspeaker on our team. He's not coming home to repair the theater box." Upon hearing this, Erwang's wife immediately smiled and had 2 small dimples. Her round face was filled with a pair of big eyes, which made her look happy. "Big brother, come in quickly. It's been over a year now and there hasn't been any movement in the house, which has made me feel frustrated. If you help my sister Law fix it, she can introduce you to someone. Choose any good girl from these 10 miles and 8 villages." Li Qianjin smiled shyly and said, "Sister-in-law, I'll do my best." "Alright, hurry up and prepare the whole dish." Liang Erwang waved his hand and said, "Shaoli, your sister-in-law is crazy. Don't pay attention to her." "Liang Erwang, dare you choreograph me? Wait for me." Erwang's wife's voice drifted in from outside. Liang Erwang chuckled and said, "These tiger girls. What kind of outfit do you wear? Who doesn't know you're a strict wife?" Captain Wang mercilessly exposed him. Liang Erwang held out his tools and radio and said, "Shaoli, don't listen to Lao Wang's vernacular. Are we that kind of person? How can I teach her a lesson?" Old Wang pouted and sneered, "Hurry up and coax it away." Liang Erwang chuckled and said, "Shaoli, when you have a wife in the future, you will know. Is this fear? This is love." Captain Wang waved his hand repeatedly and said in disgust, "Get out of here now. How old are you, still in love? Is it disgusting?" Liang Erwang didn't care and ran out of the room with a smile. Li Qianjin opened the radio and checked the paper basin first. It is easy to bump into it when moving it. Upon opening it, it was indeed found that there was a damage on the concave slope of the speaker, but fortunately, the paper at the crack could be connected. Find a relatively soft piece of rice paper, cut a piece of paper with scissors that is larger than the damaged area, then apply paste on one side of the cut paper and stick it to the crack. At this moment, Li Qianjin, who was focused on his work, didn't know that several people were standing behind him watching. "Little sister, how are you?" Erwang's daughter-in-law leaned in her little sister's ear and asked. Gung Chunni's face turned red, she pinched the ends of her braids and lowered her head without saying a word. She just used a pair of big eyes to secretly glance at Li Qianjin, who was focused. Erwang's daughter-in-law covered her mouth and smiled, "Little girl is moved." Gung Chunni angrily pushed the elder sister. As the elder sister said, this skillful Junho immediately caught her eye. Li Qianjin didn't pay attention to the movement behind him. After repairing it, he checked again and found no other problems. He turned on the playback button and said, "Through the forest, across the snow plain." The model play was played with clear and powerful voices. "Great!" Erwang's wife jumped up and down behind Li Qianjin with a moan. I almost scared Li Qianjin out of his soul. "Sister-in-law, your voice almost sent me away." Li Qianjin turned his head and touched his heart. "Blame me, my sister-in-law will offer you a toast and accompany you later," said Erwang's wife with a smile. "Chunni, quickly wash your hands with a basin of water for Master Shaoli." Chunni shyly carried the basin out, and Li Qianjin realized that there was another girl in the room. Captain Wang chuckled and said, "She is Wang's sister. Law, the most beautiful flower from 8 villages within 10 miles. Oh, village flower." Li Qianjin really remembered who she was at this moment, only knowing that she later entered the city with the educated youth, and there was no news from then on. At that time, his mind was filled with that woman like a little fairy, and nothing could squeeze into his heart. Gung Chunni brought in a basin of water and saw her dressed in a water-blue cloth, with a white melon seed face, neat bangs on her forehead, and a pair of watery and agile big eyes under her long eyelashes, as if she could speak. 2 shallow dimples hang on both cheeks, smiling before speaking. A black braid draped over the chest from the shoulder, exuding the simplicity and beauty unique to this era from top to bottom. "Thank you." Li Qianjin took the basin and washed away the dust from his hands. "Chunni, why are you still shy today?" Liang Erwang came in carrying a pot of chicken and couldn't help but tease his shy and timid aunt, saying, "Show your usual carefree spirit." Gung Chunni's face turned red and she glared fiercely at Liang Erwang, then turned around and ran. Erwang's wife happened to welcome her younger sister and quickly said, "Don't leave, eat here, don't listen to your brother. Law's carelessness." Gung Chunni felt sorry for being picked on and breaking the girl's heart. Zhaoshuyuan.com Erwang's wife whispered, "Let's go. A good man must put down his face and go grab it, otherwise you can compete with those female educated youth in the city." Gung Chunni looked up at Li Qianjin sitting on the kong, nodded, and followed Erwang's wife in. "Brother forward, don't worry about the poor craftsmanship of rural people," Erwang's wife said with a smile. Li Qianjin said, "Sister-in-law, if you want to be polite, I can turn around and leave." "Okay, my sister-in-law likes your personality." Erwang's wife sat on the kong and instructed Gung Chunni, "Little sister, go stir-fry 2 more dishes over." Liang Erwang looked at Li Qianjin and then at his sister-in-law's back, grinning. These two are really a perfect match. Captain Wang looked at the repaired radio and pondered for a moment before saying to Li Qianjin, "Shaoli, there are quite a few broken electrical appliances in our production team. I plan to have you work full-time as a repairman, and the job division will be treated according to Wang's treatment." Li Qianjin didn't expect that the thing he knew would shine and heat up here, but it's not a problem to specialize in repairing that little thing. He pointed to a large house not far away and said, "Is that a tofu workshop?" Captain Wang nodded and said, "Yes." "Why is it abandoned?" "After Feng Leiguai, the tofu maker, died, no one could make it anymore, so it had to be abandoned. My father is a tofu factory worker, and I have also learned this skill from him." Li Qianjin smiled and said, "I specialize in making tofu for the team. How about repairing electrical appliances for everyone in my spare time?" "That's great." Captain Wang patted his thigh with joy and revealed his bad teeth. This time, the Qingshan production brigade can find a treasure. The more Wang's daughter-in-law looked at Li Qianjin, the more satisfied she became. She was like a treasure boy. "Brother forward, do you have a girlfriend?" Chapter 10. Benefits of Artisans. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. Li Qianjin smiled and said, "There used to be someone who despised me for going to the countryside and bragging with me. Hi, then she's too tasteless." Wang's daughter-in-law was overjoyed. It was really fate that they came from thousands of miles to meet. Gung Chunni, who was stir-frying on the stove, kept her ears perked up as she heard the conversation in the room. Her lips curved upwards, and the spatula for stir-frying swung more lightly. A plate of stir-fried shredded beans and chili peppers with all colors, flavors is quickly taken out of the pot. Due to the use of meat oil, there is still a hint of meat fragrance mixed in. Li Qianjin took a bite and put it in his mouth. The taste was really good, much stronger than his cheap stepmother's. Gung Chunni stir-fried another egg and persimmon before leaning against her side and sipping on them. Seeing that Li Qianwei was particularly fond of the two dishes she stir-fried, she couldn't help but feel secretly happy. Captain Wang reminded Xiao Li that tofu shop has been abandoned for a long time. It will take some effort to clean it up. No problem, I still have some strength and will pack up quickly. Li Qianjin thought to himself, how could it be lighter than working on the ground? My Chunny can help, she cleans up the house quickly and cleanly, said Wang's wife. Taking advantage of the situation, Liang Wang shook his head like a tambourine and said, that's not possible. My father-in-law and mother-in-law treat Chunny like a treasure. If they know you're ordering her to work, they won't even drive the house to cut you off. Wang's daughter-in-law glared at her husband and wished he could be killed by a mouthful of baijiu, a simple-minded, four-limbed single-celled creature. What a great opportunity, working together with men and women is not tiring. Li Qianjin quickly declined, no need, I can do it myself. Now is the busiest time for spring plowing, so you can't trouble anyone. That's right, young people have the spirit of fighting against heaven and earth. I'll leave that tofu workshop to you, and strive to make the members eat hot tofu as soon as possible. Captain Wang likes Li Qianjin's indomitable spirit. Wang's wife glared fiercely at the two straight steel men and turned her head with a smile, saying, forward brother, how about coming to my sister-in-law's house to start a business in the future? If the radio breaks down in the future, my sister-in-law can still open her mouth. No, we educated youth have a fixed amount of food, but we can't take advantage of it anymore. Li Qianjin said, sister-in-law, if you have anything to do, just speak up. Since I have arrived at the Qingshan Brigade, this is my second hometown. We are the villagers in the village, don't treat me as an outsider. Wang's wife thought to herself, city people can still speak. Listening makes people feel comfortable. With a smile, he said, if sister-in-law has nothing to do, she can invite you to come and have a dental ceremony. Li Qianjin waved his hand and said, no need to say hello. Maybe I'll follow the fragrance and come knocking on my door. Liang Wang laughed heartily and said, that's right, I'll make sure you're good and delicious when I come here. He then picked up a bottle and poured wine for Li Qianjin. Li Qianjin quickly closed his cup and refused. In his past life, he was also a person who loved drinking and often got drunk when he was in a bad mood, so he had cerebrovascular disease. In this life, he will definitely not drink too much. Moreover, at this time, making a slip of tongue after drinking can also bring him trouble. Wang, I've reached the limit and can't drink anymore. How can Liang Wang seize the opportunity to drink and not fully enjoy himself if he doesn't work hard? Stop talking, it depends on whether your face is red or white. It's okay to have a few more drinks. Although alcohol is good, drinking too much and causing trouble is not good for the body. It's best to drink it in moderation. Li Qianjin refused to drink it. Wang's daughter-in-law raised her hands in agreement with Li Qianjin and said, listen to what they say. You know how to drink it all day long, don't drink it anymore. Liang Wang looked at Li Qianjin with a resentful expression. This little brother is good everywhere, but he doesn't drink well. Grunt. Not smoking, not drinking, not living is better than a dog. Wang's wife snatched the bottle and said, I'm asking you to drink less. Who said I won't let you drink anymore? Captain Wang also supported Li Qianjin, what Xiao Li said is reasonable. Just drink some to relieve fatigue, don't drink to death. Wang's wife put away the wine bottle and said happily, Chunny, serve your brother Qianjin a meal. Gung Chunny is so old that she has never met such a knowledgeable and rational man. How do you like him? He filled a big bowl of rice and pressed it with force. Captain Wang saw Chunny serving Li Qianjin a meal and joked, Chunny, your Uncle Wang's appetite is also good. Gung Chunny blushed and turned around before running away. Li Qianjin smiled as he looked at Gung Chunny's slender back, holding a heavy rice bowl. Craftsmen in this era are really rare. Having had enough to eat and drink, Qianjin came out of the Liang family and saw that it was still early, so he sneaked to the tofu workshop, where he would be his stronghold from now on. Take out the key given to him by Captain Wang, open the rusty iron lock, and push open the dusty wooden door. The smell of decay and mold fills his face. A few big mice screamed in surprise and ran out. Although the house is old, it is unexpectedly spacious. A large grinding disc is covered in thick dust, and next to it is a well with a pressure rod. The white gauze hanging on several sides of the wall no longer shows its true color and has turned into black cloth. A stack of wooden molds filled with tofu was covered in mouse droppings. Several large wooden barrels scattered on the ground. When Qianjin walked through the neighborhood and saw 2 more houses behind him, he jumped up with joy. With an independent space, it would be much more convenient to learn and read books on his own. Zhaoshuyuan.com 1 is a bedroom with a small heated bed, 2 cabinets, and a scattered table inside. The other room is a boiler room and stove, which can make it warm like spring when winter arrives, and you can also turn on a small stove on your own. It's not too beautiful. I walked up to the well and pressed it, and the water splashed out. It looks very clear, but because it is not used for a long time, it needs to be disinfected with quicklime before use. Qianjin had a rough idea of what was missing and went directly to the team headquarters to find Captain Wang. He explained the situation of the tofu workshop and Captain Wang agreed with his idea. After all, it was an entrance item, and it was clean and beneficial for everyone. After leaving the team site, Qianjin carried half a bag of quicklime and 2 bags of paint in his hand. He weighed over 100 pounds on his body as if nothing had happened, still shooting stars with great strides. Returning to the youth center, it was already sunset, and the room was filled with mournful cries of ghosts and wolves. On the first day of farming, the educated youth felt an unimaginable sourness. Qianjin, why didn't you return to the team after fixing the horn? Hao Quan immediately jumped up and scolded Qianjin with the captain's authority, you have to make up for the work you didn't do today tomorrow. Oh, you're still drinking. Qianjin bypassed Hao Quan and smiled at the other 6 people, saying, brothers, you've worked hard. Fang He wailed and stretched out his hands, saying, look, 10 large blood bubbles with water spirit. How can you endure after the first day? Fang He, pay attention to your thoughts. We just need to roll all over the mud and refine a red heart. How can we describe it as enduring? Hao Quan continued, we should not learn from some comrades who think of evading labor with small excuses. This kind of thinking is dangerous and unacceptable. Hao team, I was wrong, but this hand hurts too much, it hurts my heart so much, Fang He quickly admitted his mistake. Chapter 11. Difficulties in Life. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, Hao Quan gave a reserved smile, and the other party was very satisfied with the way he went, so he turned his focus to Qianjin. Qianjin, do you see how much work we do in a day? You should have been a part of it because you were lazy. Stop. Qian came to see Hao Quan and wanted to provoke everyone's dissatisfaction with him. He immediately interrupted him, Captain Hao, the division of labor in revolutionary work is different. I not only help repair the speakers in the brigade, but also repair the radios at the members' homes. So I'm not slacking off, but Captain Wang arranged my other tasks. Hao Quan felt that the captain's authority was threatened and he began to create opposition. If you don't work with us, you will be detached from the masses. Qianjin shrugged and said helplessly, do I listen to Captain Hao or Captain Wang? Hao Quan gritted his teeth and said, of course, it's up to Captain Wang, but you can participate in labor after the repair is completed. Qianjin said, but I still have to make tofu, I really don't have time. Qianjin, you are so amazing. Fang He exclaimed in surprise, why do you know everything? Qianjin humbly said, I'm flattered. My father is a worker at a tofu factory, and I'm a family student. There's nothing unusual about him. How Quan nearly spouted his old blood, and you stole his mother spotlight. He squeezed out a smile and said, "Oh, it's good. You should work hard to serve our members." "Can we?" "Ah." Lu Xiaoguang frowned and winked as he leaned in to establish a relationship. Li Qianjin quickly dispelled his illusions. As long as he dared to take a piece of tofu, Hao Quan would immediately report him. "This is collective property, not even a single soybean belongs to me." "He," Lu Xiaoguang said awkwardly with a smile, "I mean if there are any unsold items that need to be disposed of in the future, they can be sold to us at a cheaper price. I don't know how to handle it in the team, just follow the rules and regulations." Hao Quan secretly resented why Li Qianjin was so meticulous. Dinner time. As soon as 2 large pots of stir-fried radishes and pancakes were served on the table, the educated youth turned into hungry wolves, not even pretending to be girls, and devoured them greedily. Only Li Qianjin ate a large bowl of rice filled with Gung Chunni's bowl at noon and was not too hungry. He ate it slowly and orderly. "Li Jinjin, why don't you come down to work?" Wang Xia's eyes turned red as she watched the relaxed Li Qian inhale without making a sound. "Wang, I am currently a tofu maker in our village, and my battlefield is there." Li Qianjin explained, "Soaking beans, grinding milk, flipping boards, and my work is not easy either." "By the way, your father is a tofu maker," Wang Xia said with a flattering smile. "Li Qianjin, is there still a shortage of people in your area?" As soon as Wang Xia spoke, the eyes of the other girls became tense. Since she had taken the lead, they all secretly cursed her for not succeeding. "No shortage, the team said they can only arrange for me alone." Li Qianjin decisively refused. Is bringing such an ant over purely to make him feel uncomfortable? Wang Xia never thought that farm work would be so tiring. She felt like her waist was about to bend. Thinking about living this kind of life in the future, she had a strong desire to die. Just now she saw another possibility in Li Qianjin, risking her life to fight for it. "No, I need to go to the brigade to find Captain Wang. I can also make clothes." The others were reminded by Wang Xiai and all moved to think about their own skills. Lin Xiaoxiao said, "Don't be delusional. Which young lady in the countryside doesn't know how to sew and mend? What should I do? I really can't do any work." Wang Xia was stuffing corn cakes into her mouth while shedding tears. Lin Qiao comforted and said, "Just hold on for a while. Look at those educated youth who came earlier than me, they're not all old tricks now." Wang Xia was even saddened when she remembered those dark-faced female educated youth. Women in their 20s looked like they were in their 30s, and this kind of thing would happen to her in the near future. How can we live these days? Huang Wan's mood didn't improve even as she chewed on the cake. When she was a child, she lived a luxurious life, but now she has to be careful everywhere because of the bad ingredients. This hardship is equally unpleasant for her. After finishing their meal, the tiring day left the educated youth with no energy left. They simply tidied up and lay on the kong, not wanting to move. In just one day, the immature educated youth have experienced the gap between people. Those who are capable can live comfortably anywhere, while those who are not capable can only resort to hard work. Some are sleeping soundly, while others are tossing and turning. The next day, Li Qianjin got up early and went to the tofu shop to tidy up. His young body gave him infinite vitality. He first sprinkled lime into the well, and soon the sound of the well water churning came from inside. Cover the well and clean up any accumulated dust in the room. The flying dust still carries a musty smell, making it difficult to breathe. "Forward brother, are you inside?" Li Qianjin looked up at the door and saw Chunni standing there with a lively expression. "Pooh, pooh, pooh." Li Qianjin walked out, with those musty spots all over his mouth and nose. He spat hard a few times before feeling better. "Chunni, what are you doing with me?" Gung Chunni nodded and took out a flashlight, saying, "Brother Qianjin, can you help me fix this?" When Li Qianjin was young, he used this old-fashioned flashlight with a simple principle. He took off his gloves and took off the lamp holder. He checked the lamp holder and shell and found that the light bulb was not faulty. Zhaozhuan.com, no problem, it will be ready soon. The morning light scattered freely, casting a golden glow on Li Qianjian's face, accompanied by his focused gaze, creating a strong atmosphere. Chunni tilted her head and looked at Li Qianjin, her eyes full of obsession. Li Qianjin inserted the key into the two small holes of the front cover, removed the front cover, scraped off the rust on the copper sheet, and then opened the outer cover of the switch to see if the rust on the areas where the copper sheet came into contact and the back cover pressed against the battery was removed. After installing the battery, he pushed the switch up and the flashlight lit up. Chunni praised with admiration on her face, "Wow, Brother Qianjin, you're amazing." Li Qianjin, who was praised by the beautiful woman, felt happy in her heart and pretended to be serious, saying, "It's nothing, these are all minor ailments." Gung Chunni smiled and asked, "Brother Qianjin, did you have breakfast this morning?" "No, I'll go back to the youth spot to eat later." Li Qianjin planned to go back with a disheveled face, showing the educated youth that he was also working hard. "Wait for me a moment, I'll go home and make breakfast for you." Chunni ran back without waiting for Li Qianjin to agree. "No need, I'll reply." Li Qianjin shouted at Chunni's back, but stopped shouting when she didn't look back. He could feel that the little girl had some interest in him. He also has a liking for the sweet and beautiful girl here in his heart, but Li Qianjin has someone in his heart, and he also wants to take the college entrance examination. Once the two are separated, the distance between time and space will dilute everything. He doesn't want to be Chin Shimmy. "Hey, little sister, what are you doing with that broken flashlight?" Brother Gung Chunni, who was going to work in the field, asked curiously. "It's fixed." Chunni smiled and swayed in front of him, bypassing her older brother and entering the chicken coop. She quickly took out a few eggs and walked towards the house.